Well, we've had an exciting day around here. We've had some wonderful preaching. We've had some really wonderful altar services. It's been exciting. And Loria, I get them mixed up sometimes. Loria has been learning, reciting some Bible verses she already knows, and she's going to be learning some more. So she's doing that. We had some really good food. Anyhow, thank the Lord for this youth camp. It's really been good. I'm going to start back in chapter 11 of Genesis. I really wanted to do this one. It says, "And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech." Remember when we talked about Adam naming the animals? And I told you about the Hebrew language, how it was written in pictures, how the alphabet was pictures, and how he just needed to describe them with the alphabet, and that would be their name. Well, it seemed like that all of them spoke the language of Noah. So he was down from Adam. Of course, everybody was from Adam, but he was from that godly seed of Seth and Enos. And so I feel like the language that they were speaking was probably Hebrew. But that's just my opinion. But it is one of the ancient languages that all the other languages come from, that the world says that about. So it says the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. So they all understood each other. No matter who said it or what they said, they understood each other. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. So, you know, as I've been traveling in Alabama, and as I've been traveling in Georgia, it's amazing how you can see these fields, beautiful fields, and you can imagine all the people of the earth gathering in a big plain, big field like that. If it was big enough, I don't know what the population was at that time, but we know that it was after Noah and his 3 boys and their wives and his wife came out of the ark and started multiplying. So I don't know how many there were, but they were all of one language and one speech. And this was before the time of Peleg, when the earth was divided, because you remember last chapter that we read, we were reading about how all these nations were divided. But this was before they were divided. This was after they came out of the ark, and they were all of one language and one speech. The reason I know that things that happened in the previous chapter were after this happened, because it said, "These are the families of the sons of Noah after their generations in their nations. And by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood." So right now, the nations are not divided, and this is the reason they became divided. So we're going to learn that today. "And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." So they didn't want to be scattered abroad. Remember about Nimrod? Let's go back to Nimrod. If you remember about Nimrod, it's back in chapter 10. Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. The land of Shinar was between the Tigris and the Euphrates River. And Babel is what we're talking about right here. We know that this is called the Tower of Babel. Hey, sister. I'm doing my granny share. You want to say hello? Come on in.
No, go ahead.
I know, but come in and say hi.
Hi.
This is Sister Gert that I'm staying with in the youth camp. And Sister Gert is an evangelist. I'm going to put the camera on you. She's an evangelist, and she would come to any of your churches probably if they're not over in Timbuktu. She's a wonderful preacher, and she invited us to come and be with her. So,
And are thoroughly enjoying
Yes,
them
and-
being here with us.
yes, and here comes Sister Betty, and she's her partner. Many times when they have revival, Sister Betty's there singing and praying around the altar. I'm so glad I get to introduce y'all to them today. I didn't know they were coming in right now, but the Lord did, didn't He? So, if any of y'all want us, Sister Gert Riley, to come to your church, you just let me know, and I'll get the word to her. So, anyhow, we're studying in chapter 11 of Genesis about the Tower of Babel, and it says, what I was saying was Nimrod is the one that started the city of Babel, a kingdom. The beginning of his kingdom was Babel. So Nimrod was one of them that wanted all of them to come together on that plain, and they were the ones that were saying, "Let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." Well, God wanted them to be scattered abroad. He told them to replenish the earth. He wanted the whole earth to be filled up with mankind. He didn't want them to just have that one kingdom right there in that spot. So they were really rebelling against God and what He wanted them to do. So then, the Lord came down, verse 5, to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, "Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do." Nothing. You know, this going up high, God knew that going up high was going to reveal things to them that they never knew. Going up high into space, we know that. Since we've gone into space, our technology has exploded. We know so much more than we ever did before we went into space. So God knew that if we just kept on trying and trying, that anything we imagined to do, we'd be able to do. So then He said, "Go to, let us go down and there confound their language, and that they may not understand one another's speech." What an idea! Could you have had that idea, Sister Gert?
No,
That wonderful idea of confounding their language. I'm going to turn this around so you can see them. They don't want me to, but I like this. I think it's a blessing for all of us to be able to see each other. God had the idea to confound their language so that they would go away from each other and gather up into things that like nations, countries, go to other places. God knew that if He changed the way they talked to each other, where they couldn't understand each other, that the ones that could understand each other they would go with each other, and the others would go in a different direction because they couldn't understand each other. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. So that big tower and the city that they were building was abandoned because they couldn't build together anymore because they didn't understand each other. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. He scattered them, and that was His intention. He wanted people to live all over the earth. Now, this was before, to me, I believe this is what happened. This was before the earth was divided in the time of Peleg, in the days of Peleg. So once God caused all of them to go to the ends of this panacea, this big giant continent that was all one, Once he got them to go in all kinds of directions to find them places where they could live and talk their own language, once he did that, that's when the days of Peleg came, and he divided the earth. And it became all these continents, I think 7 continents. It became that, and the seas were in between them. And for a long time, they weren't able to visit one another or be with one another on the different continents. He scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel. You know, when you use the word Babel, it means you can't really tell what they're saying. It's like, it's Greek to me, you know, because I don't understand it. And I cannot. I've taken Spanish and I've taken German, and I can't speak either one of them. It's like not in my constitution to speak another language. The only one that I can speak, I don't understand it, and that's when the Holy Ghost gets a hold of me. I don't know what he's saying. I let him say it, but I don't know what he's saying. And so it's babbling too to me. But then sometimes the Holy Ghost will interpret and tell us what he's saying. So this is what happened there. And God caused all the people to be scattered abroad and not go on building just one kingdom and one big city. So it says, these are the generations of Shem. Now we're going to go on with that because we have a few more minutes. And it's just going to be people being begat from each other. And we'll read down here. It says, these are the generations of Shem. You know, Shem was the second son of Noah. It was Japheth first, Shem, and then Ham. But Shem was the godly line. Shem was the line that Jesus came through. Shem was 100 years old and begat Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. And Shem lived after he begat Arphaxad 500 years and begat sons and daughters. Now, you know, it sounds like when it says Shem was 100 years old, that he was born at the time that God told Noah to start building the ark. So Shem grew up, sounds like, with the ark being in building. And Noah, having heard from God, and he said he was 100 years old and begat Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. And Shem lived after he begat Arphaxad 500 years and begat sons and daughters. And Arphaxad lived 35 years and begat Selah. And Arphaxad lived after he begat Selah 403 years and begat sons and daughters. And Selah lived 30 years and begat Eber. We talked about Eber, remember? And Selah lived after he begat Eber 403 years and begat sons and daughters. We talked about how Eber was probably the reason that they got the name Hebrews, and Hebrew for their language was this man Eber. That's as far as I know. I'm just sharing what I know about that. If you know more about that, I'd love to hear from you. And it says, and Eber lived 34 years and begat Peleg. And remember, I figured it up about Peleg when the earth was divided. And of course it came after the flood, because he was one of Shem's, I think he was his great-grandson, is when the earth was divided. Peleg was. Maybe it was great-great-grandson. Let's look. He had Shem, Arphaxad, Selah, Eber, Peleg. Is that great-great-grandson? And so Peleg lived after he begat Reu 209 years and begat sons and daughters. And Reu lived 32 years and begat Serug. And Reu lived after he begat Serug 207 years and begat sons and daughters. And Serug lived 30 years and begat Nahor. And Serug lived after he begat Nahor 200 years and begat sons and daughters. And Nahor lived 29 years and begat Terah. Now we're going to come into somebody that we're going to know again. But I want to go back to Peleg, and I want to tell you that I figured out that the earth was divided about 2,000 years after it was created. Somewhere around 2,000 years. If the earth was created in 4004 BC, then came the earth divided in 2000, and then came Jesus in 2000 more. And then 2000 more, it's going to come the day of the Lord. Isn't that interesting? And we're right there at that line of the day of the Lord coming, because we've already had 2,000 years after Jesus came. So get ready. I mean, things are going to start happening again as far as the Bible is concerned. You know, we've seen the signs of the times a long time now. It's going to start happening. And you want to be ready to go when he comes. Every one of us want to be ready to go. And it says, after that, we talked about Nahor lived 29 years and begat Terah. And Nahor lived after he begat Terah 119 years and begat sons and daughters. And Terah lived 70 years and begat Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Abram. Yep, we're coming to somebody you know. I'm going to stop right there because tomorrow I'm going to talk about Abram, the friend of God. Okay, we had a good time today, didn't we? I'll see you tomorrow if the Lord will help me to do it again tomorrow. Bye-bye.